Here it is, the final leg of our journey. We're now filming in Orlando, Florida. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm so excited to conclude this sermon series with you, where I'm taking you behind the scenes about how we did this full sermon series across the country, and we are now in our final destination. And it was quite a relief for all of us after having been in the very chilly, like 20-degree New York City. We are now in Orlando, Florida. Thank goodness. And I was excited to finish our trip in Orlando, Florida, because it is a city I'm very familiar with. I love vacationing down there with my wife, and it's a place I know very, very well. And this is where my expertise and knowledge came in very handy. We'll get to that in 1 minute. So we had 3 sermons that we were planning on filming here. First off, we went to Daytona. We drove about 20-30 minutes away from Orlando, and we actually start off in Daytona because we want to try to film in and around Daytona at the Speedway. And we had a hotel that was like pretty close to where the actual track was itself, and we actually found a really cool angle on the back end where you could still see the track, and they were actually running test laps at the time. So again, this is where our microphones came in so handy. We actually filmed one of the sermons with the racetrack in the background. You could hear the vroom, 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 vroom of the cars testing. Made for a really cool environment. It really got our pastor excited because he's very much a racing fan. So it was cool to have that experience. And we finished up around the area, and then we also filmed down on Daytona Beach, which wasn't a crazy challenge. Like, it was very warm, very sunny, and again, for people like me, I burn very easily, so sunscreen was a must. So, you know, another tip for you videographers out there, if you don't know this already, you definitely got to come prepared for your own personal safety and comfort. Because if you're out in the sun too long, even if it's a cold day, if it's a clear day with sun, you will get burned if you burned easily. So I was ready with my sunscreen. And what's cool is no one really bothered us on the beach. Like, we bought our little pass to park the vehicle on the beach, as you can do along Daytona Beach. And what was really cool is just getting footage of the pastor walking like parallel to the water. So I got these great shots of him walking, I'm walking. He was walking like this, and I was walking with the gimbal like parallel with him. We had the ocean on the other side. So it was really cool to see kind of like that nice contrast. We did some walking towards the water shots and walking away stuff, and all looked really great. Probably the trickiest thing was just being aware of the exposure settings, just because, again, it's Orlando, it's sunny, it's clear day. And also, the thing I had to recalibrate for once I saw what it was doing is the sun was actually bouncing off the sand and kind of reflecting up into the subject's face. So that was really making things really tend to be more blown out. So I had to really compensate for that. And luckily, on my camera in particular, we actually had a ND filter that was part of the lens mount, so you could actually like swirl the ND filter settings to become more tense. And there were times where I had to really crank that thing up to its maximum setting just so we could compensate for how bright the sun was. And so we did all that filming all up and along Daytona on the beach near the Speedway. And then as soon as we wrapped up that sermon, the next day we drove to Orlando and got into our Orlando hotel. And that's where the prep work began, or our biggest challenge, I would say, of the entire trip, at least in my opinion. And this is where my experience came in handy. So one of the sermons that we wanted to tackle was all about happiness and how people worship happiness. And my pastor had, one could argue, the very ambitious, maybe crazy idea of wanting to film in Magic Kingdom. Yes, that Magic Kingdom. And so part of our prep for this part of the trip was looking into blogs, YouTube channels that have done photography, video vlogging in the parks, finding out what were the official rules, what's stated and understood but not written down anywhere officially. And so, because the big thing is we needed to try to make sure we got the equipment we needed into the park and didn't get turned away by security. So after doing all this research and planning, we basically had three plans that I came up with. So the first plan is obviously the ideal plan, which is we bring in the red Komodo camera that I'd been filming with, and that was our main camera, into the park. Now the red Komodo, for those of you who are not familiar with that particular camera body, it's pretty small when it's stripped down to its camera body. It's about the size of a small tissue box. However, once you add a grip, a lens, my monitor, and then you put it on a gimbal, it now all of a sudden is pretty obvious that it's not a camera that you went out and bought off of Amazon or Best Buy. It's a serious looking camera. And so that's been the rig we've been filming the entire rest of the series on, and this was our last location, our last sermon series. So it's like you need the ideally you want the footage to match in the editing. So the strategy was I took everything off of my camera body. I took all the plates off, I took the handle off, I took even the tripod plate. I stripped it down to almost basically just the camera body. So it looked very small, unassuming. It just didn't look like much. And then I spread pieces throughout my backpack, and I made sure the lens I used was very, very small. It wasn't like a big zoom lens. It was a very nice, small, tight lens that could shoot very, very wide, so you could have as much in focus as possible. We packed the gimbal up as much as possible, slipped that in the backpack. And so the main strategy was that we were going to go through the line at Magic Kingdom, and I was going to go first, because like if I got turned away, then it was like, okay, head back to the car and we're going to execute plan B. So plan A was like, okay, I have as little as possible camera gear in my backpack. My partner has the microphones, he's got the backup camera, he's got the lens. You know, all I have is basically the gimbal and the camera body, and that is it. So it looks very unassuming. It doesn't look, you know, like a huge, big rig. And so that was plan A. Plan B is that we had a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K camera with us. And if my camera didn't make it through, that was going to be our new A cam, and we were going to bring that one out. And that one looks a little bit more like a consumer level photography camera. That's in the car. Then, if that didn't go through, we had plan C, which was we had these little Panasonic cameras that could shoot in 4K and take our microphones, but obviously the image quality isn't near the level of either the Blackmagic or the Red camera. So that was like, if all else fails, we have these cameras. If we got to go back to the car and get these are what we use. But obviously, we are both crossing our fingers, knocking on wood, and praying that my camera makes it through security. Because if my camera gets through, no problem. My partner is going to make it through, no problem. So we get up security. We've done our planning. I've made my camera look as very genteel and as least threatening as possible. Security gal just asked me what I did. I'm like, well, we're filming this for a YouTube channel, and you know, this is what we're about. And she was very cool about it. I give all credit to her. She asked questions, I answered them, and we got through security. And as soon as we got through security, I was just so fired up. Like, yes, we got the main camera in. This is great. And then the next thing we immediately did is right off to the right-hand side is where Disney has the largest, like, family-sized lockers. And they only have about 20 to 30 of them, and they fill up like that when the park opens. So we immediately ran over and got that, because that was where, like, we put my big equipment bag, put all that there, and literally I just took out every piece of the camera, piece by piece, slowly built it back up in the locker area, and then we went into the park and we started filming. So we are here on location in Magic Kingdom in Orlando, Florida. So managed to get the cameras through security, which is good. So we're going to be filming around the park today. So I'll give you a walk on as we keep going. We got off to a great start. We got to film in front of the castle, which looked amazing. Like, that was so cool, having like the big castle in the background as we did parts of our sermon. We only really ran into one issue at one point, and I think it was just because where we placed ourselves, just because it was a little bit more of a crowd walking area where families were, and also that's where a lot of people were leaving their strollers, and we were actually filming near the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and it is kind of a little bit of a bottleneck, so you know, you don't blend in as well. And that was the only time we ever got bothered by cast members. They asked us a few questions. We just answered them very chill. We did not try to panic. We didn't act nervous or anything like that. And they cleared us with security, and that was the last we ever heard of it. And that's how we filmed a full sermon in the Magic Kingdom. And it was well worth the prep. I definitely think our preparation, the fact that we knew what we were going to say if we got asked, what we were doing in there, we were prepared. I actually, just to help us blend it a little bit, I actually was wearing a very blue Stitch shirt. For those of you who are fans of Stitch, I gotcha. But that was just to kind of help us, blend in a little bit more. Because I was like, if we look like we're a hardcore videography team, it's gonna know us. But if we look like we're just kind of like part of the group, part of the crowd, we're Disney people, no problem. And so that was how we pulled that off, and it was really exciting to see that all come together. And then we got our sermon done. We were done by like 1 o'clock maybe at the latest. And we had made sure that our day passes had park hopper passes. So once we put all of our gear back in the backpack in the locker, we actually had the rest of the day to actually enjoy the parks and kind of just unwind a little bit after literally about almost 3 weeks of being on the road and filming and just constantly walking, carrying all this heavy gear. So it was nice just to be able to relax. And I would say some of the things I learned from doing this is prep is so important. Definitely having equipment and plans for any eventuality, like having the right gear for filming, in low light on location, having tested your audio so you know what your audio setup is, so you get good, clean audio. Having a wide variety of lenses, because you never know what kind of a situation you're going to need. Having an ND filter built into the camera, I think it was a big help for my partner and I, just because we were able to adjust for lighting situations. But always charging batteries, and the gimbal battery especially, every single night. As soon as we got done for the day, you plug that stuff in. But being flexible about your locations, keeping your eyes open to new possibilities about where you could potentially film. I think all these things played a huge role in us having such a successful series, and I'm really, really proud of how it turned out. So I hope this little behind the scenes series about how we filmed this whole sermon series across the country, I hope that's given you guys some ideas if you are part of the media team at a church and you're thinking about doing something outside your church walls. I highly recommend it, because it just allows for you to kind of expand where you guys are at, outside, get outside your church walls, get outside even your state. And I think that it just allows you to show some really cool content, and allows for some really amazing footage that can be repurposed, not just as a sermon, but also for social media content. And some of the social media videos we've released from this series have performed very, very well on the different platforms. So if you have any questions that I didn't get to throughout any of these episodes, please drop them in the comments section. I'll see if I can get to them. Hope this just inspired you. It got you excited for new possibilities for how you guys can serve your church as part of the media team, or a part of just the overall media strategy. I've really enjoyed talking with you guys about this and showing you some of our behind the scenes footage. And until next time, keep the faith and keep on filmmaking.